What type of incidents are people of Asian appearance experiencing in Australia right now?
So the most common racial discrimination that our respondents are reporting are usually them receiving racial slurs. So them being, told go back to China, being called coronavirus, being blamed for the virus, people saying that, the Chinese virus is your fault. So those are the type of examples that they're receiving. The where, it's usually happening, the majority, I think it was about 36% or so. And I'll send you the quantitative summary report so you can see some of the quantitative charts. But I think it's around about 35–36%, which is the majority, were victims of that racism on a public street or sidewalk. So usually when they are taking a walk, or they're walking to a grocery store to collect, shopping or doing whatever. A lot of the times it's either bystanders kind of walking past, making those passing racial comments, or it's a car driving past, seeing them, stopping or driving past and yelling through the window. So that's the most common one. And the second most common one is things that are happening in the supermarket. So being blamed, when they're doing their, weekly shop, they're at Woolies or Coles or whatever, they're getting blamed for, being hoarders. And, we know where a lot of that originates from. So they're being called hoarders. A lot of them are being coughed or spat on. Some of them are being blamed for the virus, particularly when, they're wearing their face mask when they're out. They're being blamed for being part of the virus. And they're also being shoved or intentionally tripped. So those are the most common ones. So one of the cases that really stuck out for me was a person was reporting on behalf of his or her parents. So they're more elderly parents. I think it was the mother was taking a walk, and as she was walking on the sidewalk, she got she was blocked, so she couldn't go past. And then that person started to racially intimidate her. So basically just yelling out a bunch of racial slurs, blocking her way, not letting her through. And once that was done, and obviously she didn't respond, but yeah, and then just left. The majority of respondents have been female. So it's been around over 65%. And in regards to, I guess, their culture or their background, the majority obviously were people who had some type of, Chinese origins, including people from mainland China, and people who, someone like myself who are Australian born, but also those who are Chinese but had a Southeast Asian background spectrum. And then the second highest would be people of Korean descent, so people with a Korean background. And then the third most common are those with Vietnamese backgrounds. And what the last fact I want to say is that the majority of cases were not reported to the police. Obviously, that could be a number of reasons. Obviously, one could be because if it's just racial slurs, they don't feel the need to report it to the police. But there's also others, there's this culture where, particularly in the Asian community, that they don't report things. Even if they're being physically intimidated, they won't report it because they see it as too troublesome. Or, if they're international students, a lot of them just have that fear because they're on a student visa. So they don't want to cause too many problems. And that's how a lot of them think. So that's a bit of a summary.
Are these episodes new? Did people of Asian appearance always experience incidents of hate in Australia, or has something changed in the type of incidents they are experiencing right now?
Racism has always been there. It has been there. And when we talk about racism against Asian Australians, it has been there since the first Asians came to Australia for the gold rush. So that would be the Chinese who came to Australia for the gold rush. So that yellow peril has been there for a long time. This COVID-19 pandemic is a symptom. This racism is a symptom of the bigger issue of racism in Australia. And it actually shows that the Australian institutions, such as the government and things like that, have not had a proper conversation about the issue of racism in Australia. So this is a big symptom. And using the COVID-19 pandemic is also an excuse for people who may hold some, who may not be as aware, or who may be slightly, you know, have ignorance towards other cultures, but also those who may have some racist intentions, now feeling more emboldened to use this pandemic as an excuse because they're scared for their health. So they use that fear to, you know, to be racist towards anybody who's Asian. That sentiment was already there. And then this pandemic was just an easy way for people to be angry and to vent their anger and racism onto Asian Australians. And one thing we need to remember is that racism is a cycle. So at the moment, yes, the targets are of anybody who looks remotely East Asian of appearance, but the racism towards Middle Eastern and Muslim Australians has always been there and still there, towards Indigenous Australians, towards, you know, African Australians, and so forth. So it's like a cycle. It just keeps going around. So it just depends on whose turn is it next to be the prime target. So I think this, like, you know, like I said, in summary, I think this COVID-19 pandemic is just a symptom of the bigger issue.